Ruzhinji rwaramba, Zimbabwe yaramba, Zimbabwe yaramba, Zimbabwe yaramba. Police the police, guard the guard, chair the chair, chef the chef, save the...
A very warm welcome to you and thank you so much for joining us on Combating Corruption, your weekly current affairs program that focuses on all things relating to corruption. Now, statistics from high-level panels on illicit financial flows from Africa indicate that Africa is losing 50 billion United States dollars annually through illicit financial outflows. Are African governments winning the fight against the graft of corruption? Are strategies being put in place to be able to ensure that we do have a significant step towards addressing issues around corruption? We have a comprehensive engagement in the responses to these particular areas. I'm joined by Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission spokesperson, Mr. John Makamure. Makamure, thank you so much for hosting us here today.
Thank you very much, Farai.
Now, appreciating, of course, that the African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption, which is on the 11th of July each and every single year, is what we're looking to be able to acknowledge. Give us a brief understanding of our relation to that as Zimbabwe.
The African Union Convention on Preventing and Combating Corruption, it's a very important convention to which Zimbabwe is a state party. So far, 47 African countries have ratified that convention. So it really shows some political will. If you can get the majority of the member states ratifying the convention, because many other African protocols and international conventions are suffering from lack of ratification. But here a significant number is ratified. So we see that as progress. Then you find that quite a number of countries, the majority in fact, have now in place anti-corruption agencies, which is one of the key provisions in that convention, the establishment of anti-corruption agencies in various forms. Then you find that many other governments have reformed the legal framework, the policy and legal framework. Zimbabwe in particular, we have quite robust pieces of legislation to fight corruption. So that is again a significant achievement. So the commemoration of the African Anti-Corruption Day on the 11th of July, it's a very important day for Africa and Zimbabwe as well. So we really look forward to that day because it is a day for stakeholders to reflect, dialogue, and raise awareness on the dangers of corruption.
Now, looking at the dangers of corruption, $50 billion worth of illicit outflows, and a lot of these are tying themselves into illegal transfers of proceeds, of corruption and crime. What have you found through your engagements with the various other representative bodies in the region when it comes to some of these findings?
Those are very worrying figures. Billions lost through illicit financial flows. So it's no secret that even Zimbabwe has such a problem as well, and it's an area that is receiving due attention. There's been lots of public debate around that issue. Various stakeholders have come together to try and see how best we can plug those leakages. So I'm happy that at least it's a topical issue that is being discussed by various stakeholders.
It does seem as though that Africa finds itself at the brunt of being able to be exposed through loopholes or being taken advantage of for instance, by multinational corporations who feel that African countries are easily urged to be able to look the other way, one could call to be able to allow business to take place. How is that specific issue being addressed as measures to fight the graft of corruption?
As an anti-corruption agency, the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, it's an area that we have been looking at and also participating in these various discussions going on here in Zimbabwe, with other countries, with other anti-corruption agencies. So it's an issue whereby, of course, when we try to attract investment, we also then give certain incentives so that investors are able to come here and invest. But at the same time, I think we should also make sure that we then don't open up and make sure that in place are regulations, laws, and measures to ensure that funds don't flow out of the country that illegally, right. Of course. Right. So we must continuously research into that area, make sure that we have got expertise from ZAC perspective, investigators that are able to probe such areas, because these are very complicated technical areas. So we must continually invest in our capabilities to be able to deal with such illicit financial flows. Yeah.
I will come back to our local components with regards to the anti-corruption graft in Africa. In your opinion, Commissioner Makamure, why do foreign-based multinational conglomerates feel comfortable being able to offer one would call bribes or illicit measures to African countries? Why is it that there's a comfort for them here?
I don't want to say that they find it comfortable to do that. I think even in other countries, they face also the same challenge. I can't talk about that. It's more comfortable here to pay a bribe. Because I don't want to say that, so we are most corrupt compared to other even developed nations. Corruption is everywhere in developing and developed countries. But what is important is as a country we must continuously look at our policy, national policy framework, national legal framework, and continually reform those areas so that we are able to deal decisively with issues of bribery. But we also need our institutions to be continuously strengthened, capacity building of these key institutions in the whole value chain, from investigation to prosecution, kumakotsi kwedu. We must make sure that we have capacity in those areas to be able to deal with issues of bribery and other corruption-related offenses.
Now, bring it closer to home, we do find ourselves being on the wrong side of the footing whenever multinational corporations come and want to do direct investment into our African countries. It seems as though we are the ones who are requesting some of these unsavory measures for financial flows to make their way into our countries. How is the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, for instance, addressing internal issues such as those?
We need investment, both domestic and foreign. Foreign direct investment, domestic direct investment. We need that. So we must continuously improve the environment for that, which I think the Second Republic is really trying very hard to make sure there is that conducive environment for more investors to come. We need the multinational corporations to invest in this country, but we also need to promote our own domestic investors. But then make sure that we've got the necessary safeguards against corruption-related issues like illicit financial flows and other offenses. So we must continuously encourage investment, but make sure that we have got the necessary policy legal, very strong policy legal framework in place.
How are we addressing the issue of foreign multinational corporations who are trying to invest in Zimbabwe, having blockages because there are people who feel that they can be the direct link to be able to access institutions or relevant figures, and then this then now deters and pushes them away as we are open for business? It's
an area that we must always look into, and we encourage citizens to report such malpractices to the commission, where you have what you are terming, agents that then always want obviously to be the middleman and to make sure that they They are then paid. They ask for huge amounts in terms of commission, and then that deters investment. Yeah, so we need transparency in the manner in which investment decisions are undertaken. Approval processes themselves must be more transparent, so that we deal with these middlemen, because that will also then lead to a very high cost of investing in this country. If investors have to pay these unnecessary sums of money to so-called middlemen, then they will have to recoup that money, and investment decisions become very costly. So yes, we encourage, if whistleblowers come across such practices that are deterring investment, bordering on corruption, they can report to the commission, and we can investigate.
Now moving on to policy, to what extent has enforcement of the money laundering and proceeds of crime activity?
It's a very important piece of legislation for us, some provisions to do with unexplained wealth orders are in that act. Provisions to do with unexplained wealth orders, they are provided for in that act. And that has really assisted us a great deal in the recovery of assets, because decisions are made, court decisions are made on the basis of balance of probabilities. So it's easier than criminal cases to succeed in a court of law. In criminal matters, you have to, the accuser has to prove beyond any reasonable doubt that an accused committed an offense. But under the unexplained wealth orders, the decision is on the basis, on the balance of probabilities. So that act has really assisted us, and we are receiving more and more reports coming to the commission to do with money laundering. Yeah, unlike before, we have seen a huge increase in the number of reports relating to money laundering coming before the commission, and these are now being investigated. And so the act really is it's a very good development under the Second Republic that we managed to enact such a piece of legislation. So we must enforce it.
Let's look at the return that comes from being able to address issues around this particular act. Challenges do come up when it comes to being able to at least trace some of these funds, some of them that do leave the shores of the African continent. How best have you managed to at least address some of the issues that you have raised previously in our discussions of being able to retrieve some of these illicit outflows that leave our continent?
Yeah, we're making very good progress. Asset recovery is not an overnight event.
Sure.
So you need to identify, you need to trace those assets. Then when you trace, then you need to recover. So it's a process. In other countries, it has actually even taken more than 7 years for a case to be concluded. Asset recovery from abroad. So we need to ensure that, yes, we've got the necessary capacity in-house to be able to identify, trace, because these are assets siphoned abroad. You need to trace where they are, and because of information and communication technology, it's now easier to hide these assets. So you need to unravel all that. So when the commission says we have identified assets, an estimated 10 billion, we are not saying because we have identified them, then tomorrow we can recover them. So it's identification, then we trace, we discuss with other jurisdictions, we have to enter into mutual legal assistance so that we are assisted by those other countries to recover. And these countries have got their own domestic laws and policies. So this can take years. But what is important is that We are now building that capacity, and we have cases that we are actively pursuing now, using own capacity, our own internal resources, our own staff members who have been trained in cyber crime. So we make, and we are entering into agreements with other partners abroad to assist us.
Any notable references you can give to successes in this particular regard throughout Africa?
No, they quite, I can't divulge, but there are assets that we are actively pursuing right now with the assistance of some of our international partners. Who have really assisted us in terms of capacity building of our investigators, our lawyers here, to be able to pursue these assets. So we're making very good progress.
So many issues to be touching on here, especially with regards to how government has been taking a significant step in the fight against corruption. We'll take a short break and be right back with
Police the police, guard the guard, chair the chair, chef the chef, save the... Police the police, guard the guard, chair the chair, chef the chef, save the...
Welcome back to Combating Corruption, where we're focusing on all things relating to corruption, of course, acknowledging the significance of the Anti-Corruption Day, which we celebrated on the 11th of July. I'm currently joined by Commissioner John Makamure, shedding more light on the role of the Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission in light with the African Union's Convention on Combating Corruption. Now, isn't Africa's Anti-Corruption Day not just another day on the continental calendar with nothing necessarily meaningful to be derived, but at the same time more of a message that is being shared? When can we start seeing results coming from the fight against corruption as opposed to spreading the word of the fight against corruption?
Raising awareness, it's a very important prevention measure. Right. So it's a day where we stakeholders reflect. Various stakeholders, government, business, labor, civil society. It's a day to reflect on the anti-corruption approaches that we have pursued. Take stock. And then where have we gone wrong? Where are the successes? Where can we do better? So that is, in itself is very important, where stakeholders are coming together to dialogue.
Right.
And in Zimbabwe, we are doing it under the auspices of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy.
Right.
So that is very, it's not another just day, because when you raise awareness on the dangers of corruption, you go a long way. You may not see the tangible result, but that awareness deters someone from engaging in corruption. But you can't say, because like this interview program, it will also even shed light on issues around corruption and actually deter others from committing.
And I'm very glad that you do raise that, Commissioner, because some could argue that corruption could be attributed to being like an immune deficiency syndrome, that it can't necessarily be removed, but it can be managed, right? So the role then now with managing corruption is where we